have we seen this exploits done, and how many times have we seen an inside job, on a certain platform? So that makes me say to myself, well, it's just what's the reason to even put myself at a risk like that? So, but I think if we had like a service that audits audits bridges beforehand, I think that would be helpful in the community. But I don't think, excuse me, I don't think such a service exists. I don't think there's a company out there that does that. But I think that could be something maybe.
I think they have. It's like all the smart contracts, for example, QuantStamp, CertiK, and others, but sometimes they're not that good. I mean, there's some good for like Trailbits and QuantStamp. They do a nice audit.
Do they audit specifically the bridge? Are they auditing the
Yeah,
bridge?
I think so, because in the end, it's a smart contract solution too, So, for example, in this Nomad bridge hack, it was 2 lines of code, 1 line of code, and everybody was copying paste. So, and there was even some white hacks. So there was a guy that saw that, and in the middle of night, he was exploiting the bridge so he can control some funds and then return to Nomad. You know what I mean? A white hack was doing that. So I don't know how much money. I think he only was able to take like $3 or $4 million, but was $200 million was hacked. So like that's insane, man.
So this guy was doing it as like a pen tester. Like he was doing it to expose it, but not to actually like profit from it. Or
no, because he saw that everybody was hacking. It was very easy. So he said, no, I'm a hack. I'm going to take some control of this thing and then return to the bridge.
Yeah,
it's a white hacking.
Talking about that $200 million exploit.
Yeah,
that just happened, right?
Nomad bridge.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If there's a company out there that that specifically what they do is like focus on bridge exploits or security, transaction security on bridges. I don't know if there's a company that does just that. I know there's companies that do audits. They audit the smart contracts and whatnot, but that's specialized just in looking at the possible exploits on bridging networks.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of the problem is when you have you're doing cross chain transactions. It's like the one side can do all they can to audit their smart contract, that is specific for their platform or for their network. But do they have the ability to go ahead and also run these tests on the other side? I don't think they do right now. I don't think that like that could be something, not so much the audits, but it could be where you're able to run these tests. Like if you're on Ethereum, you're able to run these tests on, say, Ripple network, even though you're using Ethereum. Let's say you want to do a bridge between, one and the other, but you obviously need to see how will this react on the other side. Well, the other side has to do their testing as well. Are they going to be as efficient? Are they going to run the same types of tests? Maybe that could be the way to, at least, prevent some of this from happening. Because I think that's the problem, is that even though they can run their tests on their side of the bridge, I don't think they're able to necessarily do all that testing on the other side of the bridge. That comes down to the other party as well. So maybe somewhere in there that could be, polished up or worked on. I think that's part of the problem, or probably most of the problem.
Yeah, I think because like I said, there's 3 types of bridges, relayer, external, and liquidity. So it's kind of complex. People like to use relayer and liquidity. External are trash. So I only use Hop Network, hop and connects. But I never bridge a lot, I just put up very, very little money there just to test and do some bridging. But most of the time I just do natively, like I do
Yeah.
like on-ramping from, on-ramping directly to the native chain.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it comes down to security practices, individually. So, that's why I prefer Richard Hart to take his time on launching the Pulse chain, because in my opinion, this is giving more time to do as much security as they can. That is more important than just getting it launched out and getting it in people's hands, in my opinion. And this, this is one of the reasons why, because if the proper steps for security were taken, I think a lot of these exploits would not have happened. In fact, that's pretty much what the consensus is, that there's some simple things that could have been done to have prevented, liquidity draining or whatever, like the wormhole. Like if you're working with people that you don't know, if they don't have a history, they don't have a good track record, they don't have history at all, then that person should be limited in their ability to access security protocols. So I don't know who the people are that Richard is working with, but I'm just trusting that he has a good judge of character. But I guess we'll find out. We don't know for sure, but I guess we'll find out. But I think that would make the community more comfortable if they knew like who was who had access to the security protocols. I think it also would lend some accountability to these people, because if they're known, they're probably less likely to do something and try and get away with it. You know what I'm saying? So I guess what we can demand as a community, um, is just more transparency with the individuals behind the scene, and accountability. Like, what happens to these people should they do something to jeopardize the security of the network, or attempting exploits? What happens to these people? Do they get banned from the communities? Do they get somehow, um, do they get their wallets confiscated? I mean, these kinds of things are still, there's nothing really, you know, in place for that. We don't have like a council or anything like that. And if we did, well, now we're kind of going against the whole decentralization thing. So, individual, standing on your own volition individually, and doing your due diligence and taking responsibility for yourself, that's key factor. That's huge. But having some kind of accountability with the people behind the scenes is also important too. We just don't really have a structure for that at this time.
Yeah, that's the point. I remember Richard who was mentioning that all these bridges, the biggest problem is like that. You need to mint a new token, a synthetic token in a new chain. And it's very centralized. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4. It's a multi-sig, and 2 or 3 guys have the power to take over, So it's very, very easy to have inside job, very corrupt systems, We saw that on running. Remember running? So, so that's the problem, and I don't think it's gonna be very possible. People talk about state proofs. State proofs are gonna be the next thing in terms of bridging. Um, yeah, but right now, I mean, I'm not gonna even touch these bridges, man. you know, and look at, for example, what's happening with 50% of Moonbeam, this Polkadot EVM, was drained. 50% of their TVL, and Cardano was fucked too. So I mean, the systemic risk is too high.
Yeah, I think the best thing is, like I said, just, due diligence and limit your exposure if you are going to be doing these things. Um, but there's really not much at this time. I guess it comes down to how well do you trust and believe in the platforms, the people behind the platforms in which you are using. That's kind of like your first line of defense, I guess. The only way to really have some kind of confidence in it. But if they have a history and a track record of being exploited, I just say avoid them altogether. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You miss out on an opportunity or a deal or something. I mean, just go onto that platform and onboard there. Avoid the whole exposing yourself and your assets to bridge exploits. But individually, that's what you have to do. Your own due diligence. But I mean, thanks for bringing that up, because I don't really think about that too often. That I don't use bridges, but that gives me something to start looking into more and thinking about more.
Yeah, bridges are not good, man. But that's the problem is that's the way that you can pump liquidity to your chain, because there's a bunch of chains. You go to a website like Whale, Uniwhale, and you see all the bridging happening there, all the TVL coming from other chains. It's a way so people, all these investors, they like to use. Oh, look at how many tokens are being bridged to my chain. But if one of these bridges are hacked, your TVL is gone. You know what I mean? So you're giving too much risk. That's why probably I think the next way to analyze chains are going to be TVL, that bridge TVL against native TVL. You know what I mean? Something like that. People are going to say, evaluate how many of the TVL in your chain are bridge assets, and that's too many risk.
The other part on that, to add to that, is when you're making that comparison, I think that another thing to look at too is how valid can we consider the liquidity of that particular token. Like, do we know, how good is the accountability of that particular token? I think ultimately, to be honest with you, I think the only way to really be to be rid of this problem is to just get rid of bridging altogether. And what we really need is 100% interoperability across the board, like 100% interoperability. How we
Yeah,
achieve that,
I don't think
I'm
that's
not saying that.
possible, man.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not even saying that it's possible right now, but I do think that's the ultimate answer. That should be the ultimate goal. To be honest, that should be the ultimate goal on any new project, any new platform, any new network. I think they should um, be building themselves out with the future vision that interoperability will be reached. 100% interoperability will be reached somehow, even if that means that there's some new language that has to be created that includes all of the various aspects that these different codes, that these different networks are written in. At the end of the day, it should be simple to just like break down the fact that it's all ones and zeros. It's all binary code. Almost everything is running off of a backbone of some type of Linux. Um, I think the biggest difference in anything is it running like on an ARM architecture? Are we like mobile, or are we built out for more like PC? Um, but I think that there is a way to do it. We just haven't tried hard enough. We haven't gone to that extent. Everybody wants to be the next big thing. They want their platform to be the one that everybody's using. But that's I think that's it's limiting. It's very limiting. It's limiting DeFi. It's limiting fintech. It's limiting our ability to be independent peer to peer, to have sovereignty in DeFi fintech. And we just open ourselves up to more reasons why government has to come in and start regulating things, and why, the SEC and, all of these different agencies will feel the need to get their tentacles in and insidiously subvert the goal of DeFi, the goal of fintech, right? Taking our power back of private property, of our ability to own our own financial freedom. So I think 100% interoperability is the only way to solve these types of problems. The exploits happen because somewhere in there's a gap between the two the two platforms. There's a gap. Well, in that gap there's a lot of shadows that people can hide in and just wait for the right opportunity, because no crime is exploited unless the opportunity is presented first. There must first be an opportunity, then there can be an exploit. If we remove the opportunities, we remove the exploits. 100% interoperability, in my opinion, is the only way we could achieve that. When we start doing these bridging and this kind of stuff, you're creating shadows that people can hide in. So until that's 100% eliminated, I don't think we will be 100% free of these types of exploits. Just my opinion.
Yeah, like I mentioned, there's this solution called state proofs, that people are trying to use, because then the whole idea is that all these chains, they do not share state. The only thing a blockchain does is change the state and have a new, a new ledger, a new block that's going to say, oh, this guy has that, another guy is sent to this. But they do not share state. These blockchains are silos. So all these blockchains, they need to share the same state in a way. So that's when comes state proofs, So it's not two different chains. They are, if they're using kind of the one chain, and then you can bridge assets, That's a kind of complicated to explain, but you know what I mean? They need to share state. They cannot be silo. It's not like Pulsechain and Ethereum, whatever. They need to share the same state.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're talking about the 100% interoperability. That's what I'm talking about. That if this what I haven't really heard about this, the state thing you're talking about. I'm gonna look into it though. But that sounds like the way to achieve this. You're right. I mean, and it's actually pretty simple. It makes sense. I don't understand why we can't be doing this right now. Is there a reason why? Is there a reason other than, I guess, just the hubris of every platform that's coming out that just wants to be the next big
Yeah,
thing? Is there
maybe
a reason
some
other than that?
centralized bridges, they want to make some fees money, you know what I mean?
So there's a there's a greed factor in there that's preventing it, but there's not
Maybe,
a
yeah.
technical reason. So, but there's not a technical impossibility, right? If this is it's more of it's a human factor, not a technical factor, why we're not achieving this.
Yeah. But there's the technical stuff too. It's not that easy. I think ZK rollups, um, zero knowledge proofs can help on that too. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. Would be a nice to have like a live or something, Twitter space, people to talk about that, because that's right now that's the biggest threat for crypto. It's not even this fucking DGEM VCs doing borrowing and lending uncollateralized thing. The biggest threat in crypto are these bridges, you know.
Yeah.
And right now, there's almost $2 billion in bridge hacking. So the government is watching that for
Oh
sure.
yeah. And they
So
like it when this happens because it just lends more it gives them more ammunition to step in and say, hey, look, in order to protect you guys from yourselves, we're gonna have to X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, all that's gonna do is it pretty much just it just ruins everything we're doing here or everything that we're trying to do here. But see, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not in crypto because I'm trying to 10x my money. I'm not trying to get into crypto so I can get out into fiat. I'm not worried about that. I don't want to compare any of my digital assets to X amount of dollars or whatever other fiat you want to insert. I'm interested in what we are creating here, the implications this has on the greater of society, our ability for 100% ownership of yourself and of your life. And when we allow things like this to happen, when we don't work hard enough to stop this stuff from happening, we are moving further away from the intention of DeFi and fintech, and we're just putting it right back into the hands of these centralized agencies that this is what they want. They want us to sabotage ourselves. They want us to hang ourselves so they can come in and have reason to be the savior. And people will just tacitly acquiesce to whatever the government says if they feel that they're more trustworthy than the people in DeFi. And we're not really showing much concern about this. We're not doing much like the conversation you and I are having. Why is this not like why are these conversations not happening more often in every space? I understand this is a place to talk about Pulsechain and you know Richard Hart projects, but I think it does a disservice when we don't have these types of conversations in these types of spaces because the people that are here don't necessarily go anywhere else. They're not going to go in 15 different chat rooms to have the conversation that everybody should be having. So maybe if you create a Twitter space for that, man, let me know as I'll join. I'll be on there. I'll be having these conversations. I'm very interested in this side of DeFi. More interested in this than how many X's my crypto is going to do. I don't give a shit about that. I think it's fucking stupid. I mean, go ahead, make your money, make your profits, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's stupid if that's the only thing that you're here for. If that's all you're thinking about doing, just go to a fucking racetrack and bet on horses or go gambling and do that. Don't come in here and start tainting DeFi and fintech with just trying to profit and greed and, make money. There's a reason this is here. There's something greater than your bank account, than your money, something greater here going on than that. And if we don't do what we're supposed to be doing with this, we're just shooting ourselves in the dick. That's it. We're screwed. This is our last opportunity. This is the last exit.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. This is a really good conversation. Are you suggesting that you've got, or there's some better ways to break things so we can fix them to make them better? Like, things are going to stay the same, blase bland, until, they need to be improved. And what denotes improvement is when things suck or break or get hacked or whatever. You follow me?
I think the biggest problem right now is that we have not good devs in crypto. There's a bunch. I know some. There's a lot of inexperienced devs in crypto because the only thing they do, they go to GitHub, copy and paste a project. I know there's a lot of devs, actually full stack engineers that do the same, but they don't know how to manage it. They just change a little bit the front end. They don't know how to manage this contract. They are just copy and paste. Yeah, and sometimes that's good because they are copy and paste some very secure protocols, like I don't know, Aave, Sushi, Uniswap. But sometimes they're I mean, they're forking very shit projects, and then you have these systemic problems. If you people are copying the same protocol, and if you find exploit in this protocol, is going to be exploitable in other chains because you just copy the code. And that's one of the biggest problem right now. And I don't know who are these devs managing these bridges. There was a guy saying that the Nomad guy didn't know how much money was in their bridge, and who was like managing this shit, because people are like draining all these tokens, and anything happened, man. Nobody was watching, you know. So
Well, to touch
that's the
on
biggest problem right now.
what he mentioned, I didn't catch the name. I didn't see who was asking that, but you said something about, are we suggesting, is there a better way to break things so we can test and figure them? Pretty much, that's pretty much what I'm saying is we need a very transparent, not like a council or something centralized like that, but we do need a way to do more, to, like you said, to try and break this shit before we put it out there and allow the general public, the average Joe Blow retail investor that, FOMOs into shit and doesn't really do enough of their due diligence. We need a way to do as much damage control ahead of time rather than trying to just, fix problems after they happen, or, um, it's like the reactionary effect is what's becoming standard. Just put it out there, let's see what happens. If something happens, then we'll fix it then. No, it shouldn't be like that. We should have a way where if anybody wants to put out a project, that they have a place that they can go to and say, here, this is what I want to publish, this is what I propose. I want to give it to this group or to you guys, and it could just be a bunch of anonymous devs or people that are well known. I mean, I don't know, but they should be able to offer it there and say, hey, here you go. And like, just beat the shit out of it with everything that we know of and do what we can to find every possible exploit that can be ran on it, find ways to improve it, find ways to make it more stable, to give it some, more flexibility in its interoperability, but more rigidity in its security. And I don't think there's a couple places that you can go where you can offer up your code, but I don't know who runs these different platforms, and I don't know how well intentioned they are. I also don't know how much testing they actually do and what they do for their testing. But I think if we had something that was more transparent, and we knew that this, if you give this project to this group right here, you're like guaranteed to get back like all the error reports and all the possible ways that you can um, improve it. That it'd be great if we had something like that where the community knows, like, that group over there, they will test your shit like 100%, like all the way through. You're gonna get like 125,000 point inspection, and that thing is road ready. You can feel assured that that goes out. You're not going to be dealing with the 0-day hack like the day after. That kind of is what I'm suggesting. If we
Yeah,
had something like that.
the way that yeah, the way a lot of crypto is, it's kind of the way they sell video games. They show a bunch of really great graphics, then the video game comes out
Yeah,
and
good
it
example.
sucks. And then they spend the next 2 years doing updates, and then trying to sell the little perk upgrades, the DLCs. That's the word I was looking for. DLCs.
Yeah, no, that's a good example, really good example actually, because it's pretty much what happens. And like I said, what this does is it creates shadows for people to hide in. The crime comes after the opportunity. So we need to think about all the opportunities before we allow the criminal, the crime, to take advantage. I'm saying this because I was a bad guy. I know how they think. I know the kind of shit we will do if we have the opportunity to do it. We're gonna fucking do it. So I don't think enough people think enough. They don't think nefariously, and unfortunately, when you think nefariously, you probably are nefarious. So the good people generally don't think about the bad things that can happen because they're well intentioned. Their thought process isn't like, what can I exploit? What can I do? What can I get away with? What can I take advantage of? So maybe we need to find some, reformed bad guys and, you know, put them, you know, put them in contact with some good guys and have them work together. Because I think, it's the thought process sometimes isn't the same. And so you end up with a system that is really good on this side, but it didn't account for this, or it didn't anticipate for this. Which, if you had a bad guy in there, or a reformed bad guy, he's going to say, look, first of all, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check and see if the window's open, or if the back door, do you have, security cameras over here? Then I'm going to go over there, so maybe that's something to do, is try and headhunt some reformed bad guys and see what we can do to get them, on the job.
Yeah. Yeah, too risky for average retails, you know. They need to manage wallets, seed phrase, multi-sig. Now they need to know if this bridge is secure or not. That's very, very complicated.
Yeah, I think I've said this for a while. I think one of the biggest problems we have in crypto isn't even a technical thing. It doesn't even have anything to do with technology. The biggest problem we have is education. We have a bunch of people coming in to this space, don't know the first thing about it, don't even take the time, don't even know where to go if they wanted to. And lack you win by what you know, you lose by what you don't know. And if you don't know what the problems inherently lie within these different, blockchains, wallets, bridges, if you don't even understand the terminology, how are you going to safeguard yourself? How are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to make sure that what you're doing is your due diligence? You don't have a way to. I think the biggest problem we have is education. We don't spend enough time trying to help these. That's one thing I do like about this particular chat room is all you got to do is say, hey, you guys, I'm new here. I just got into this. Can you tell me how to, such and such? You're going to get all kinds of people. First thing they're going to do is, do you have a cold wallet? Do you have your MetaMask set up? It's like the first thing they go to. And that's one thing I do like is, like, when Papa Boner's on here, he's making sure everybody he's talking to He's saying, first, hold up, let's back up. First thing we need to do is this. And it's going towards making sure that they understand the basics. And I think that's one of the key factors which can prevent a lot of people getting wrecked if they knew better. If you know better, you do better. So I think that's something that we should probably as a community spend more time trying to accomplish and achieve, is maximum knowledge base, maximum education. Let's reach parity with educating the retailers in to with the everything that's being created, that's coming out, that they can expose themselves to. Let's try and do that more. Let's try and help each other out more than tear each other down because they don't know about this or that. Or there is a lot of there's a lot of ego in this space, unfortunately. So not everybody's here to try and help everybody else out, but I think that's more important than you personally financially benefiting from anything in DeFi, is you helping out one or two other people get into this space and to understand what they're doing, to know as much as you know about it, if not more. Let's leapfrog off of each other's knowledge. You don't have to be the tallest guy in the room to see the furthest. You just have to know which giant's shoulders to stand upon so you can see further than everybody else. That's it. So let's educate each other more. Let's help each other more. Let's not tear people down because they don't understand as much as you do. But let's promote education and let's promote knowledge more than we promote a particular pump. And just coming back to full circle to what you had mentioned in the very beginning of this, was that the inside jobs in these bridges, when those happen, um, the fact is, the majority of the technical exploits that happen, the first part of that process wasn't even technology. The first part of that process had something to do with social engineering. Somewhere in there, the human element was the key factor to get to the next step, the next phase. So, always be aware of what you as the person in the real world, tangible world, are doing, because the majority of the time, if you get hacked, if there's an exploit that you suffer from, it's nothing technical that led to that. It's something that you did. There's some social engineering that was the first process. So always keep that in mind. The human element is probably the number one, like, that's the gate, that's the entryway to getting into the next step. Like, for instance, one of the easiest ways to kind of like paint this picture, when you post up a picture, like a screenshot or a picture that you took, you post that somewhere. Well, if somebody was bad intended, if they wanted to, they can get that picture. They can look at all of this other data that you don't even realize is attached to that picture. They can look up the geolocation of that picture that it was taken. They can look up the longitude. Believe it or not, they can pinpoint where you took that picture, what device you took it from. They know what kind of a device you're using. They know the area that you're in. They probably can get an IMEI number or a MAC address. Then they can go and they can look in that certain area, connected Wi-Fi, and try and see exactly where you're at, find out where you live. And if I know enough information, then I can find out what are your habits. Well, Now I can find out when you will or won't be home. Now I can find out what typical websites you go to. So I can just clone one, put it up next time you go to it. You think you're on the right one. And then when you go and you hit some refresh thing, well, now you just basically gave me full control of your entire network. So I can do more than just get into your wallet. I can get into your life. I could probably send people emails and text messages from your phone as if I were you, asking for help. Can you please send money? And now I can, take advantage of the people that you know. And this could all stem from just one simple picture that you put up on Twitter or Instagram. So, think about that. That's just that simple stuff. Just keep that in mind, people. It's a human element.